Hello, I'm Anthony. Arturia have released the filter MS-20 today, the latest in their suite of filter plugins. This comes from the Korg MS-20 from 1978, classic analog synthesizer. And this plugin is available on the Arturia website. If you want to check out the link in the description below, you can get it free until the 2nd of January 2023. Fabulous synthesizer. I've done a full tutorial series on the Korg MS-20. I'll put that somewhere above and in the description below. I'm going to do a couple of things first before we get going on the interface. I'm going to click Advanced Mode to turn this lower window on. And I'm also going to turn off Limit Resonance. Part of the charm of the MS-20 is that it's capable of some fairly brutal sounds, but you have to go through this warning to get to them. If you say, okay, I get it, make sure you've got some sort of brick wall limiter set on your output bus, control your output levels carefully, because as I'll show you shortly, you're capable of generating some really intense resonant peak spikes, and they are capable of being pretty intense if you're not ready for them, so that's why the warning's there. Anyway, I'm going to press a chord down, and I'll just give you a quick intro to the filter bank itself. Simple low pass and high pass filter. Let's get going. If I push this peak and then take the chord off, eventually, or very soon actually, you'll get, there we go. So there's the resonant spike coming in at 7 on the dial, which is very low. Usually resonant peaks appear at kind of 9.5 or 10 on most synth dials, but it is a very eager and enthusiastic synth. So this spike here at 1859 corresponds to the current low pass filter setting, there or thereabouts. I wasn't particularly accurate on my insight there. Now here's one of the things that's cool about this filter system. This master cutoff adjusts the overall low pass and high pass filters. So if I get a note going and then turn the master cutoff, you can see it's as if I'm turning the low pass up, but it's also as if I'm turning the high pass up at the same time. So it links these two filters together. It also means that the resonant spike is now no longer going to be at 1832 because we've added an extra little bit of modulation onto the low pass filter. So it's actually now at 4,200. Bit intense up there, isn't it? Anyway, let's get on with the demo. Filter pan. We've also got a distortion unit, which is going to add, guess what? Drive. Listen to that. This is just a simple Sawtooth sound we've got going on here. Here's the naked sound on its own. Completely stock Sawtooth coming out of the CZ. And that's what we've generated with the drive and the filter. And you can swap these two components over to send the filter into the distortion instead. Generates a dramatically different sound. So now this filtered sound is going into the distortion unit. Brand new set of harmonics are being generated. So it's basically like two sounds for the price of one with that little button. It's really pushing the drive there. Master output level. And there's the high cut. So if I take lots of those high frequencies away from the distortion unit, obviously there's now less for the filter bank to play with. Even right with the low pass turned all the way up, those frequencies aren't coming back. They've been attenuated before we get into the filter bank. Then we've got 3 different modulation engines to play with. The first unit's called the envelope follower. What this basically does is it takes the control voltage amount, basically the size of the signal that's coming into the filter, and it uses that as a modulation source, effectively like a gain knob, if you like, to control how much we're going to affect the rest of the components of the filter by. So for instance, if I head into my master synthesizer, the thing that's feeding the sound, and I introduce long attack envelope. So now every note that I press has that long lead-in time. That envelope from the attack is going to be used as a modulation source for one of the components in the filter unit. And the way that we map the modulation is with these three little circular controls. You've got green for envelope follower, purple for sequencer, and cyan for the function. We'll deal with those in a moment. But here's the envelope amount. I'm just going to click and drag and introduce some of the envelope follower to the filter low pass. So now every time I press a key, that attack slope is going to apply a modulation to the low pass filter. And down in the window below, you're going to get two different views. The grey amount is the size of the control voltage signal coming into the synthesizer. So if I press 2 notes, it's going to get louder. The green line is how much modulation is being sent to whatever's listening to it. So if you look at the green line, this angle, this 45-degree angle, is basically turning the low pass filter up every time I press a key. So it's a really cool way to give dynamic modulation to your filter banks, dependent on the incoming signal. What does the incoming control voltage signal look like? Basically applied the incoming synthesizer's envelope, the attack envelope, to the filter bank. Turn that off. Now we'll engage the second one down, which is the sequencer. Let's turn that on. And now every time I press one note, you can see each one of these steps is now a new modulation control voltage amount that's being fed into the filter's low pass filter. And you can see the yellow symbol on the outside of the control telling you what the current value is. At the moment, all of these values are positive, so it's modulating up and down, but I can turn it into bipolar mode. So now it's going to oscillate around the center point wherever this knob currently is. And then we can control the individual values of these steps. Very cool. If we map that to something like stereo, we're going to get some pretty wonderful pan effects. Let's do some of that. Nice. Now that by introducing it to the peak as well, I'm going to get occasional self-oscillation spikes around the filter cutoff, whatever that happens to be. And I can also introduce this smoothing or slew, which basically means it's no longer going to be distinct modulation amounts. They'll all get merged together and be a much more smooth effect. Double click on all of these modulation sources. Destinations to turn them off. This is the source, this is the destination. Should get my terminology right. And then we've got function finally. Let's turn some function on. This basically gives us, think of it like a multi-stage envelope, basically. So I can draw really complex shapes in this window below. And now this thing is going to be used as a modulation amount to affect whatever I'm plugged into. So with the low pass filter, you can see as it's drawing this envelope, it's changing the values by that amount. We've got this sort of magnetic effect on the nodes as I'm drawing these envelopes. You can set it, I'm currently in sync mode. So it's basically got like a timing grid behind it. And because the magnet's on, as I drag it to those individual timing lines, you can see the nodes kind of jump to stick to the closest one. So it's really easy to build sync-oriented envelope patterns. We've also got some presets. Down here I can engage like a Sawtooth preset And now when I draw with my pencil, basically does that thing. We'll have a quick look at a couple of presets before we call it a day. Let's try the drums rolling shuffler. So there you can hear we've got the function amount, which is this thing, applying to some of the controls. There's the filter peak. We've got the envelope follower, taking the input from my slow attack phase of my key. It sounds like there's a sequence running, but there isn't. That's the function generator doing all that work. See that curve? That's what's doing those portamento effects. Lead psychedelic pulsations. And that's the Filter MS-20. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit like if you did. I'll see you again. Thanks very much.